and welcome to Marshall Matters with me, Winston Marshall at The Spectator. In this series, I've been exploring freedom of expression in the creative industries, amongst other things. And today I'm joined by actor turned politician, and now again, actor Laurence Fox. Laurence, welcome.
Hi, Ren. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Well, can I start by saying congratulations after a very tempestuous couple of years where I think January 2020 you appeared on BBC Question Time.
It's so easy to throw the charge of racism at everybody, and it's really starting to get boring.
What worries me about your comment is you are a white privileged male who has no experience in it.
I mean, I
can't help what I am. I was born like this. It's an immutable characteristic. So to call me a white privileged male is to be racist. You're being racist.
And shortly after, for the opinions you expressed there, which seems to be, on the whole, Britain isn't racist.
Yeah.
You lost your agent. You were in a battle with Equity, the actors' union, and it's sort of your 2-decade-long acting career seemed to unravel quite quickly. But you're back, and
off sabbatical, yeah.
And you have just released My Son Hunter, a short biopic about Joe Biden, President of the United States' son, Hunter Biden, and his relationship with his son.
I love my dad, and I just want to make him proud.
So, tell us about Hunter Biden.
Oh, dear old Hunter. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm back, by the way. I think it's more a sabbatical from cancellation, which is, I hope it isn't, but I think it probably is. Hunter Biden is a very troubled guy, isn't he?
I am a royal fuck-up.
Aren't we all?
You have no idea. No one can fuck up the way that I fuck up.
He seems to, as far as the laptops are concerned, have pretty much helped sell America to the Chinese, as far as I can gather.
What about the other companies you made deals with? They were all tied to the Communist Party?
We look forward to working with you and hope to hear much about your father and his interests.
Will do, comrades.
It's difficult now because I've got two perceptions of him. One, as a professional, as an artist, you just go, I've just got to represent the humanity of this person and not judge them. Otherwise, you just look naff. I hate actors that do play political roles politically. And then I've got my private perception of him, which is, less charitable, I suppose. But the acting of him was more charitable.
The film does a good job of showing the hardship he's had. His mother and sister killed in a car crash early, and then his brother, Beau, dying of a brain tumor.
It's so innocent.
Family first.
You do a good job, I think, of showing that side of him, as well as the more difficult, morally questionable aspects of him. So I think in terms of piece of art, you do that.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
But let's talk about the Chinese corruption. You say that he has sold out America to China. What exactly has he done?
Well, there's all of the deals that were done, which are chronicled in the film, from the face recognition technology companies, all of this stuff that he did on behalf of for China, and in the name of his dad, in these names of these deals, and he got there is chronicled this 10% for the big guy. Remuneration will need to be split 6 ways. I'll hold 10% for the big guy.
Big guy.
Big guy is Joe Biden.
I think, who else would the big guy be? So you've got Biden, you've got Joe, and then his brother. I can't remember his brother's name. But you sort of wipe it, don't you, actually? Once you've done something, I've completely wiped that script from my brain and all of the things about what I did.
Okay.
But, it's clearly chronicled in the Laptop from Hell and in the film.
Yeah.
He got
Laptop from Hell is the book.
Miranda Devine book, yeah. And then what's astonishing is that people still think that it's contested whether the laptop is authentic or not.
Well, let's go into the history for people who might not know. In April 2019, a laptop turned up in Hunter Biden's home state of Delaware in a repair shop. Later that year, it was confiscated by the FBI.
How the fuck did your laptop end up at the FBI? I thought they'd refuse to accept it. It's all worked out for now, but if this blows up, they may change their minds.
Not much more was heard of it, but a copy of the laptop, the hard drive, was sent to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, and that was September 2020. And the New York Post reported on the story October 2020, so just before the presidential elections. And that story was completely and utterly silenced by social media. Twitter took down the story. Only last month, Mark Zuckerberg admitted on the Joe Rogan podcast that he
Was told to deboost it.
He was told to by the FBI. So for the first week of the story, he deboosted it.
Is there regret for not having it evenly distributed?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because, I mean, it turned out after the fact, I mean, the fact checkers looked into it. No one was able to say it was false.
He admitted long before that he'd done that, though, in a congressional committee hearing, Mark Zuckerberg. He admitted that what he told Joe Rogan wasn't news. He'd said that very soon after. But that is terrifying, isn't it? Just the idea that... and I think they did some polling on your sort of sane Democrats rather than the sort of squad Democrats to find out whether it might or might not have affected their vote, and they were saying it did. So
yeah, I saw one poll saying 4.8% of Democrats would have voted the other way, which could have been enough to change the result of the election.
So it's pretty terrifying, isn't it, that big tech have this power. And, bearing in mind that there was 4 years from 2016 of the Democrats saying that Trump had only got in on Russian collusion, and he basically spent 4 years investigating him and impeaching him and doing all those sorts of things. Whatever your views are on Trump, it was pretty underhanded play. So then to find out that big tech had then censored this, and like Twitter stopped showing the New York Post story and Zuckerberg deboosting it, that is essentially, I mean, I'm not sure what other word you could use for it other than election rigging, in a way, because you're potentially affecting the result of an election, and that is therefore rigging it.
Well, I mean, certainly free speech seems to be in a dire state in America and here as well. So for you making the film, was there a motivation to get this story out? Is this an issue that really is important to you?
Oh, not really. For me, it's sort of boring. I'm an artist. That's what I am. I've been sucked into another realm, which is unusual and unfamiliar territory for me. But I want to be an artist. So it was the only script anyone's ever sent me in the sort of 2 years. Not so much since Question Time. My agent hung on for a bit, but then once the people started calling me a racist and stuff like that, then my agent ditched me. So it's the only script I got. So I just wanted to. I quite like playing troubled people, so that was fun. But I am interested in American politics. So, but I wasn't like, yes, oh God, Hunter Biden, I must play him. It was more, this is a fascinating story, and I also want to work again as an actor in front of a camera because I missed it.
I mean, it seems so ludicrous that the state of filmmaking is that if you have your opinions, you can lose as much as you've lost. Do you think it's justified? Do you think it's fair enough? Should actors stay out of politics? Or, have you been treated unfairly, whereas some actors can happily announce their support of various political leaders, but if you support the wrong, quote-unquote, wrong political leaders, you lose it all?
Well, I mean, some actors can punch comedians in the face and get a standing ovation. You know what I mean? Their careers aren't over. I think it depends. Certainly there is a bias towards anything which is deemed as, I think, sort of very small c social or even classical liberalism, which is, I suppose, where I am actually at. I've probably got a few more right-wing views and some left-wing views as well, but I'm probably in the middle. The political Overton windows had to move so far in one direction just to accommodate this new, very censorious woke movement that, I felt personally very upset this week about that, because it's like I was trained to do this job. And, you know, as you say, there's millions of actors that turn around and will come out in support of what can say horrendous things, actually. Some of the things that, particularly some of the things Maxine Peake, I've seen her.
Who's that? I don't know.
She's an actress, hugely left-wing actress. And some of the things she's said and got away with and is almost applauded for, I think is damaging for free speech, because it means that, who wants to watch sort of morally superior moral lecture in show business or within the arts? So should we stay out of politics? I think it's bad both ways, because you don't want woke right-winging, which is essentially what Mice and Hunter could be. If it hadn't been directed by such a good director in Robert Darby, it could have been a sort of, right, we're going to troll and stick two fingers up to all of the wokies. And you don't want extreme left-wing thinking. You want a conversation between the two. That's what I'm kind of keen on. But yeah, I certainly felt that I must have, because I called it, I said, it was a sort of moment, wasn't it, that question time? I said from what I hear a lot of people say to me, you said what needed to be said at the time it needed to be said. I think what happened to me is not massively dissimilar from what happened to you. The more they expect you to have one view, and you maybe don't have that view, the bigger your punishment needs to be in order to put others off making the same transgression.
Did you have a feeling going into that BBC Question Time that you would lose your career for expressing your opinion? Did you have a sense before going into it that actually you were self-censoring, or that you couldn't really express yourself within the creative industries, within film?
It was fine for years. I never haven't expressed myself, as you well know. I always say what I think, but it was fine. And then there was this sudden and quite swift emergence of, this idea of oppression, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I remember my final acting job before this Hunter film was a White Lines Netflix series, and they offered me the job in the room, and then there was this long conversation about the fact that if they hired, they were deciding whether to make me black or white. And I was like, why don't you just get the best person for the job? So the real hyper-racialized consciousness came into the business. And then, a lot of actors would carry on behaving totally normally, but there would be a small coterie of the permanently offended and oppressed who would complain. And I would get irritated when someone who's being paid £25,000 a week was talking about how, underrepresented they have been, and how, they believe that they're the victims of oppression in some way. And I'm like going, if you're the victims of racial oppression, then, you're doing pretty well out of it on 25 grand a week at the end of the day. And also there was this consciousness, right, long before, films have always been diverse, haven't they? I was watching Backdraft the other day, because I like watching old kind of tub-thumping American movies.
I don't know Backdraft.
It's a movie, it's one of the last movies made without CGI about fire. So it's about a fireman. It's a thriller. It's a brilliant movie, and it's beautifully directed. But it's very diverse, and you never notice. But now, because of the hyper-racialization of everything, you notice, don't you? And that's something that makes me really sad. I hate seeing skin colour.
Do you have a sense of whether in the industry it's these ideas that you're criticising are popularly held, or is it a minority within the industry or of gatekeepers who are controlling it, controlling the narrative in that sense? How on whole, how would you describe the film industry? Is it a homogenous in its thought, or is there a mixed group?
It's definitely a mixed group. I mean, look, the further away, you must have had this as well when you were playing. The further away you are from the camera, the more the views are more sort of rounded, and there's more banter. And the closer you get to the camera and the sort of intelligentsia, the more left wing. So it starts off right wing as you walk on set to go past the chippies and stuff like that, and it gets steadily more left wing as you arrive in front of the camera. So I think it is it's a minority, but it's a well supported and funded minority, isn't it? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which essentially is the exact opposite of what it says, is now kind of kneaded into all of these films, showbiz, all of it. You got BAFTA, you got RADA sent an email round apologising for being really racist, and it's just like David Harewood and Adrian Lester came out of RADA, Oti Fagbenne came out of RADA. These are great actors. What are you apologising for? So I do think it's I think that the movement is capturing on something which is true, which is a sense that there is a sense of guilt, a colonial guilt. I think people do feel that sense of colonial guilt, and then it's been targeted to undermine good relationships. And
what's colonial guilt?
Well, there is a sense, I think, in people that we just went all over the world and took over and did some bad things, and I think people think that we also gave people the rule of law, equality under law, the English language, and some really great infrastructure as well. So I suppose there does need to be a balanced conversation, but there's a lot certainly amongst upper middle class, tends to be upper middle class, well-educated, white-skinned people who really love their white guilt colonialism thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gives them a hand in the game of the woke poker.
But it seems like with this film that we might be at the beginning of the fight back against Hollywood. Your co-star, Gina Carano, who was a star of the Lucasfilm's Mandalorian series, and she was cancelled from that series. For people who don't know, she was an MMA fighter star, the sort of most famous female MMA fighter turned movie star, and she got cancelled, and it was because she'd put some social media out comparing the treatment of Republicans to the treatment of the Jews by the Nazis, which, to my personal taste, is maybe a bit far. However, given that we're constantly hearing how everyone's a Nazi all the time, it seems a little bit hypocritical that soon as someone who's got Republican sympathies uses the Nazi reference, loses her acting career. It seems a little bit unjust. Nevertheless, Gina is back with you, and not only that, she's with the Daily Wire, been making other films. Is this the beginning of people saying, we've had enough within your industry, we've had enough of Hollywood and the ideological capture, we're going to make our own films?
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? But in an ideal world, Hollywood would make some of them too. It has. Maverick, Top Gun is not an ideologically synonymous with the mainstream Hollywood thinking. So there are, and they do really well. And the Terminal List as well, the Amazon thing, is also not ideologically aligned with Hollywood. So I think they're starting to get a smell of it. But yeah, I think there's probably going to have to be two parallel cultures for a while, which is a real shame because they won't speak to each other, which you want them to. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with this film. I spoke to the director, and I think the website went down because there so many people tried to download it. So that was good on day one. And then it's
director Robert Davi.
Robert Davi, yeah. And he, we'll just have to see. What I can say is, it was one of the nicest atmospheres I've ever worked in. And Gina, yeah, you can say that the Hitlerian thing is, the minute someone starts going down the Hitlerian analogy path, you've already lost the argument. There is that to be said. But there is a rising authoritarianism. And, I don't really know what else to compare Joe Biden's speech to other than something, you could call it Star Warsian, I suppose. Which
Joe Biden speech?
Did you not see his speech in Pennsylvania, was it?
Oh, I saw a photograph.
It's really, really frightening. So I think that her analogies, anyway, I think she comes from a spiritual place. I spoke to her I had a very, very long chat with her the other day because she's removed her social media accounts. Not Instagram, but she's removed Twitter. And she just said, I don't want to give people access to me anymore. And I want to rediscover art and what it is. And I think that's really amazing that she's done that. She's one of the most generous-spirited, wonderfully clever, kind people that I've ever worked with. Yeah. And yet she's cast as this sort of evil Nazi. That's what they say, don't they? But they say that about me too.
Do you get a sense working with her of the climate in American political culture, where it seems from the outside to be worse even than here in Britain?
She says it's a real mess. And I've got to be careful what I say. I don't want to speak for her, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, if you think about it, America has a huge... One of the things that was pointed out to me the other day, which is really interesting, almost everyone in America is on a pill of some kind or another, for example, and there's obviously a huge opioid problem in America. And all of those drugs are made in China. So if China decides to turn off the tap and the supply chain goes, and you suddenly have a bunch of Americans that all go into withdrawal at the same time, that could be quite a substantial problem. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know why I rambled off on that side. But
how are you linking that to the conversation?
Well, I don't know. I was thinking. I don't know. It was one of those things that shocked me when I was told it. I don't know how it links. Sorry, bad segue. Forgive me.
But you have now really lent into a political career, and it's really impressive that with all the abuse you've got, you've kind of turned it around, and you ran in the London mayoral election
and won.
Yeah, and won, of course. Yes, Mr. Mayor. And now I understand you've launched the Bad Law Project. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, because I don't want to be a politician, really. In fact,
You're doing a good job of fooling everyone.
Well, I'm cultural. I care about the culture. I really do, and I care about free speech. Ultimately, that's what I care about the most. So the Bad Law Project actually exists to remove the politics from foundational institutions like the police and the NHS and education and the church, if possible, but looks way too far gone. So it's just to take the politics out of it, which is odd because the Reclaim Party exists to put some politics into things. So one would hope by removing the politics from... It's a political stance to try and remove political ideology.
How are you doing that? What's an example of that?
Well, okay, so Darren Brady, the ex-military veteran who was given a non-crime hate incident for sharing my post of the 4 pride flags together to form the swastika.
Which, did you get suspended from Twitter for that?
I was suspended from Twitter for that as well, yeah.
And then, and what happened? Did you have to remove the...
I had to remove the offending tweet, and which I'm more than happy to do, because I did it just to prove exactly what was going to happen would happen, which is what would an authoritarian totalitarian do if you put up the wrong flag? They'd make you remove it. So I did that, and then he one mustn't, there's only one flag that must not be criticised, which is interesting. So Darren then reposted it, and he didn't even repost it, he just said, what do we think of this? On Facebook, and he got visited by 2 coppers. And then they rearranged a visit. He contacted us, Bad Law Project, and we made sure we were there. And we then read them the Riot Act and informed them of the law, that they were actually in contravention of the law and not carrying out police procedure correctly and stuff like that. And we made a huge ruckus. And since then, the Chief Constable of Hampshire Police has been removed, and that she's gone. So that's one bad apple out of the barrel, which is a really good thing. In terms of education, we've got within this personal, social, health and economic classes. Sounds all very chilled, and religious and spiritual. No, it's not. It's RSE, whatever that stands for. You're having kids taught gender ideology and the concept of white privilege and diversity, equity and inclusion and stuff like that. And that's very dangerous stuff to teach kids. So we will be taking out cases against schools who adopt these teaching practices in their PSHE classes. We have a case against a prominent clinic who are stopping a psychologist getting qualified, because she will not admit her own inherent racism. So that's
So
what
I can
we're going
see
to do.
how, on that last example, how that would be an intrusion on someone specific, and but with the school example, how do you legally fight the schools teaching gender ideology or CRT? How do you go about suing a school? Or
Well, I don't think it's so much about necessarily suing the school. What it is about drawing parents' attention to what their kids are being taught, so that the parents form and come together to form groups to stop it. So you don't necessarily have to get legal with it. You just have to say, within this, within the for example, the legal route, the legislative, God, I hate saying words like that, route down would be to say that the PSHE does it, which has no defined curriculum. The teacher just Google it and go, I've got to teach PSHE, what shall I teach? And promoted sources up the top, things like Stonewall Young Champions or Twinkle and other organisations that promote all of this stuff. A legislative way of doing it would to be give it a defined curriculum. And decide what was and wasn't going to go in there. You don't want critical race theory being taught to children. Why would you teach kids to be racist? That's a really bad idea. So you can do it legally, but you can also do it just by the thing of going to parents. Here's what's being taught. Because parents don't want to believe it. They don't want. They want to trust that schools in loco parentis are doing the best things to children that they can. But actually, schools are very, very heavily involved in the indoctrination of our kids,
Yeah.
and it needs highlighting.
Yeah. Have you've seen this in your own kids' schools, I imagine?
Only in one of them. The other school I'm actually pretty impressed with. But yes, it's bad in all schools, yes, but in one I asked for the teaching resources and was just pretty blown away. What I can't understand is how on one part of the thing they teach about keeping signs for FGM, watching out for the signs of FGM either having taken place or about to take place when girls reach puberty, that they may go for a slightly longer holiday back to their country of origin to visit family, for some sort of, and so we're teaching, keep an eye out for the mutilation of young, innocent girls' genitals. But on the other side, you're saying, we're going to teach that boys can be girls and girls can be boys and promote the idea of mutilating children's genitals for a different ideological reason. So it's very inconsistent and extremely dangerous. Kids don't need that in their heads. Kids, it's the last thing a child needs is to be taught. Being a child, as as we all can remember, is hard enough, discovering the world without being told that there is no factual and there is no permanent reality and that it's so flexible that you could be a girl or a boy. It's just not true. So I think that's really dangerous in schools.
It's certainly dangerous, but it feels like there's a little bit of a turnaround now in the UK with the Tavistock Centre being told it has to close its doors. There's the pushback now is gaining speed, but I guess the concept of truth the mutilation of children is absolutely disgusting, but at the very core, the idea that you're confusing children about what truth is sets you up for very confusing adolescence on top of everything.
Yeah, but it's the point of postmodernism, isn't it? It's to say that there's no such thing as truth. But look where postmodernism and Marxism and that sort of thinking's taken the world.
Yeah.
It's a pretty dark and dangerous area.
So you're clearly a man whose blood boils about some very serious issues in society. You clearly love your family and your country, but what's the driving force? What are you so? What do you care most about? What is it that gets you to do all of these many things that you're
Everybody's right to an opinion. Everyone has the right to one, and I don't like injustice naturally because my mum was very strong on that. But my mum was very, very much, let people speak, listen to them, draw them out, find out what they think, disagree, have big rows, it's fine. But listen and respect other people's point of view, or don't respect it, but take it seriously. Don't just because, the reason I think why a lot of conservative thinking is shut down is because it's very good at spotting the inconsistencies of, extreme left thinking. So they just go, right, we've got to cancel you because, we cannot tolerate the strength of your argument in return. Whereas what you really want is the more left-leaning ideas to pick at the inconsistencies of the more right-leaning ideas and have a central thing. So it's a free expression thing for me. And how can I walk onto a film set and act if I'm already worried about what I think and whether I can express that? How can you create anything? Hence why a lot of what we watch nowadays is pretty like, it's a bit kind of yawny, a lot of it. So I think the more people become frightened to express themselves, the lower quality of drama you get, the lower quality of music you get, the lower quality of everything. And we want the most quality. And I also love talking with people and listening to people. But your consistency in defending free speech, I think, was proved in your defence of the football player Trevor Sinclair, who, when Her Majesty the Queen passed away, I guess attacked her in a tweet or wouldn't be mourning, grieving her. I don't remember exactly what he said. And is it Talk Sport or Sky? Yeah,
Sky?
I saw it on Talk Sport. Said, we've been trying to contact. Don't worry, everyone. We've been trying to contact Trevor Sinclair to tell him we'd been distancing themselves from his views and all of that. And it's like, guys, no one's out to get you.
Yeah.
If you just calm down for a minute, he's totally entitled to say what he thinks. I think what he says is horrible.
Yeah.
But that's one of the problems of free speech, You some of it's pretty horrible. So
this suggests, though, that earlier in this conversation that you've hinted that it's a problem of the woke, let's say, or progressive capture of certain institutions. But the free speech issue is certainly not just a left wing or progressive problem. There's people. Trevor Sinclair, in this sense, would be the progressive who's
the right wingers want to cancel.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's bad. And it's why be the opposite of them? That's not what you want in life. We're all, without becoming too spiritual about it, we're all unique and we're all equal as well. So you shouldn't pitch your tent above somebody else. So you have to be consistent. And unfortunately, that does come with going, yeah, Trev, I think that's a pretty nasty thing to say, but you have a right to say it. And people have a right to go, cancel him, but I'm just not going to be one of them. I don't believe in cancelling people. I don't believe in, I think I think everything revolves around free speech. Without it, we have succumbed. Unless we hold on to it, we're over. As democracy is over, the West is over. The West is built around the ideas of free speech. Other cultures are not built around the idea of free speech. They're built around the ideas of compelled speech, and look at the directions they go in. You don't find people on dinghies from Australia to China. You do find them on walking across the Rio Grande from Mexico into the USA. People head towards places where free speech is sacrosanct. Absolutely. They don't head in the other direction.
Laurence, thank you so much for your time today. And can you tell listeners how they can watch your new film, My Son Hunter?
I think you can go to www.mysonhunter.com, I think. And it's, or you can, and then you tap on it. I haven't done it. I'm told it's easy. I'm not going to pay for a film I was in. I'll get a free screening. Actually, can you send me the screener they sent you?
I got a screener.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. So, and then you click on it and it sends you a 6-digit text message code, and then you're on.
Well, I've seen the film, and if you don't understand the Hunter Biden story, it's a great entry point to get into what is a very murky, confusing. Keep in mind the laptop, there were tens of thousands of emails, not all of which have been verified, but a good amount have been verified. So it's a very kind of nebulous world to enter. But certainly this film goes into exposing the president's links to this corruption in Ukraine, in China, and beyond. And I recommend it to listeners. I'm sure you'll enjoy. And Laurence, congratulations for being back behind a camera and on the silver screen.
Thanks, my love.